the term Flemish Community. French, Communauté copyright Flamande. German, ˈvlaːmsə Gemeinschaft, ˈflɛɛ́mɪʃə unregistered trademark E°C unregistered trademark main Florin aft has two distinct, though related, meanings. Culturally and sociologically, it refers to Flemish organizations, media, social and cultural life. Alternative expressions for this concept might be the Flemish people, or the Flemish nation. The term community should then not be capitalized. Politically, it is the name of which both elements are normally capitalized, for one of the three institutional communities of Belgium, established by the Belgian Constitution and having legal responsibilities only within the precise geographical boundaries of the Dutch language area and of the bilingual area of Brussels capital. Unlike in the French community of Belgium, the competences of the Flemish community have been unified with those of the Flemish region and are exercised by one directly elected Flemish parliament based in Brussels. History: state reforms in Belgium turned the country from a unitary state into a federal one. Cultural communities were the first type of decentralization in 1970, forming the Dutch, French and German cultural community. Later on, in 1980, these became responsible for more cultural matters and were renamed to simply Community, the Dutch community also being renamed to the Flemish Community. In the same state reform of 1980, the Flemish and Walloon region was set up. In Flanders it was decided that the institutions of the Flemish community would take up the tasks of the Flemish region, so there is only one Flemish parliament and one Flemish government. Legal authority. Under the Belgian constitution, the Flemish community has legal responsibility for the following: education, culture and language matters, certain aspects of healthcare, international development cooperation in all areas of the competency of the community. As the Flemish community's institutions absorbed all competencies of the Flemish region, they became also competent for the following areas: agriculture, public works and regional economic development, energy. Members of the Flemish Parliament who were elected in Brussels region, have no right to vote on Flemish regional affairs. They can only vote on community affairs, since affairs concerning their region are governed by the Brussels Parliament. Legally speaking, in the regions of Brussels capital as well as of Flanders, the Flemish community is responsible not for individual people, but for Flemish institutions such as schools, theatres, libraries and museums. The reason for this is that no distinct subnational status exists in Belgium. Language: Dutch is the official language of the Flemish community. Minorities speak French, Yiddish, Turkish, Arabic, Berber, Italian, Spanish, English and German. Though most of these groups are recent immigrants, since the Middle Ages, Jews have formed the oldest minority to retain its own identity. Compared with most areas in the Netherlands, the historical dialects of Flemish people still tend to be strong and particular to locality. Since the Second World War, however, the influences of radio and television, and of a generally prolonged education, as well as the higher mobility for short trips or for moving towards farther localities, have resulted in a deterioration of the traditional pure dialects, in particular amongst younger people. Some of the differences between the dialects are eroding, and mainly in localities or suburbs with a considerable influx from other areas. New intermediate dialects have appeared, with various degrees of influence by Standard Dutch. In Dutch, these are often called tusentaal or, rather derogatorily, jourdavingsvlaams. More recently, a number of local initiatives have been set up to save the traditional dialects and their diversity. In Brussels, the local dialect is heavily influenced by French, both in pronunciation and in vocabulary. Nowadays, most Flemings in Brussels do not speak the local dialect. This is due in part to the relatively large numbers of young Flemings coming to Brussels, after a long period of many more others moving out while French speakers moved in. In certain municipalities along the border with the Walloon and the Brussels capital regions, French speakers enjoy language facilities. These cover rights such as to receive official documentation in their own tongue. Similar facilities are enjoyed by Dutch speakers in some Walloon municipalities bordering the Flemish region, by German speakers in 2 municipalities in the French-language area of the Walloon region, and by French speakers in the territory of the German-speaking community. The geographical limitations of the communities require the French community to ensure Dutch basic education in its municipalities with facilities for speakers of Dutch, and the Flemish community to finance French schools in its municipalities with facilities. Flemish institutions in Brussels, where responsibilities of the Flemish region can be devolved to the provincial level, no such equivalent exists in the Brussels capital region, which itself exercises many competencies for territorial tasks elsewhere assigned to the provinces. The community competencies there are exercised by the 2 affected institutional communities. The Flemish Community therefore established a local elected council and executive to cater for intermediate-level decision-making and public services. The VGC then recognized local, municipal institutions to take care of the purely local public service in these community areas. Media: Flanders has an official radio and television broadcasting company, the Vlaamse Radio en Televisie Omroep or VRT in Dutch. Since 1989, several private companies for region-wide radio and television broadcasting have become established. There are also so-called regional broadcast companies of which the range is limited to only smaller parts of the Flemish region. The written press is dominated by a number of quality dailies, several popular dailies and a huge number of general and specialized magazines. References. External links: English, Flemish authorities, Dutch, Flemish authorities, Flemish Parliament, Flemish Government, Flemish Community Council in Brussels, Public Radio and Television, VRT Online News in English, French and German, Flanders Today, weekly paper about Flanders, study opportunities in Flanders, touristic information about Flanders, Flanders investment and trade, information for foreign investors.